And welcome back from that break, peeps. We are here in the JJ Zone, join the Journey Radio. Today, talking about lessons at the well, this wonderful conference address from Sister Porter, the last general conference. And before the break, I was starting to get into, this whole connection of our thoughts determining our actions, which determine our results. And, so many of us, Larry St. Singles, are so prone to play the victim. We're so prone to, because we've developed this habit of thinking that the past is prologue, that, because we haven't had success in the past, we're not having success in the present, that means that there's no way we can have success in the future. And it's so off, it's so off the base of reality, but for so many of us, we feel that it is reality. And I can remember when I was younger and I was in my 20s, that's what I thought. I didn't realize at the time that I was, my thinking was being led by a habit of a false assumption. I had this habit of assuming falsely that, the past is prologue, that, because I haven't had success in the past, that nothing I trying was working, that's the way it was always going to be. And it led to huge bouts of depression, really, more than anything else. And so, I see so many other Latter-day Saint singles going through the same thing. And, now I got out of it because the Lord, in His grace and mercy, has taken me on a journey. And it's a journey that really, provided the foundation for joining the Journey Radio. I try to give to others this sense of, this sense of, what's the right word? I kind of want to say fulfillment, but that's not the right word. This sense of transcendence, that's the word, where you can transcend your challenges. You can grow to the point where, what was challenging to you before is no longer challenging. So, I look at the same, situations that I had back in my 20s. I'm looking at that, hindsight's always 2020, but, I look at that today and I've grown so much since then that I look at those challenges that I had back then and say, that doesn't bother me today. Looking at that today does not bother me because I recognize that the past doesn't have to be prologue. I understand I was operating under a false assumption. I was assuming that things could never change, but things can change because, we all have this wonderful gift called agency. It's this wonderful, what I call the second most underappreciated gift of God. Of course, the most underappreciated God of being the atonement. The second most, not far behind, is agency. This gift of agency that everyone has been given from our loving Heavenly Father. Why is this the second most underappreciated gift? Well, as I explained in the monologue, it's like there's so many people who just don't understand the power that agency gives them. That verse that, Sister Porter was quoting in her conference address, the one that is, just a popular verse from the Doctrine and Covenants, it talks about agency from section 58, and she's emphasizing the last phrase in that off-quoted verse, for the power is in them. Just stop and think for a moment. You have power within you that comes from agency. You can make different choices. You don't have to play out the habits that you've developed. You can have new habits, right? Regardless of what you choose, you're still going to be biologically hardwired to operate out of habit. And, this is why you can't just eliminate a bad habit. You have to replace it with a good one. Because if all you do is get rid of the bad habit, then, what happens is your biological hardwiring, when you get triggered by a particular situation that you encounter, it goes looking for a habit connected with that trigger. And if all you've done is just get rid of the bad habit, then it'll look at the spot where you had the old habit. It won't find anything there because you got rid of it. It won't find anything there. But because your brain is hardwired to operate out of habit, what ends up happening is it has to have a habit. So it'll go back to the last habit you had. Well, the last habit you had, the default setting, that was the old habit that you got rid of. So this is why you can't just get rid of an old habit. That's why it doesn't lead to change. Nothing changes if all you do is just get rid of the old. I've heard, I can't tell you how many, leaders of singles groups I've heard complain about how, they try to get, people to think about, singles activities as something other than a dating forum. It's not a dating forum. We're not about dating. We don't want to be about dating. If you find somebody here to date, great, but that's not what we're about. And this is exactly what they're doing. This is why this never works, because all they're doing is getting rid of the old habit, the old way of thinking about something, and they're not replacing it with anything new. When you replace the old habit with a new habit, right? Then when that trigger comes, then your brain goes to the spot where that okay, connect the trigger with a habit. Where's that habit? We're gonna look in our file directory and see where's that habit, and it's gonna find the new habit, and then it plays out the new habit because you replace the old with the new. And this is the key to change. But that change comes about only after you exercise agency. You have to make the change. You have to decide to go through the actions that will facilitate that change. And that's a choice you can make. So there's no reason for any of us to play the victim, take it down on ourselves and think the past is prologue, to think that the future can never be anything different than the past. I guarantee you, if you don't do anything different, your future will be no different than your past. Because results come from action, and action comes from thinking. And this is all this is all done habitually. The actions we take are played out of habit. The thinking we have is all out of habit. The assumptions that guide our thinking are habitual. The attitudes that guide our thinking are habitual. The perspectives that guide our thinking are habitual. Even the self-talk, the little messages that we give to ourselves in our head, that's habitual too. Learn about, the role of habit is so pivotal to making positive changes in our lives. And once you understand how you're constructed, how you're designed to operate, then you can leverage that design to your advantage. You can make changes in your life. So, like I was saying before, it's like I look at the challenges that I had earlier in my life that were giving me, despair, despondency, depression, the whole 9 yards. And I look at it today and it's like, I'm like MC Hammer. You can't touch this. You can't touch this. I've grown so much. I transcend you. You can't touch this. So, this is where every one of us can be. We use that gift of agency and make the right choices. And that's why on this program we keep talking about going back and evaluating your assumptions, evaluating your attitudes, evaluating your perspectives, evaluating your self-talk. And if you find that your habits in these items are not what you want them to be, you can make choices to change them to what you do want them to be. And it's amazing. It's amazing. It's like half our problems really are up in our head. And once we get our head straight, once we get good with ourselves on the inside, half our problems are, boom, they're done, gone. They just disappear. And we start feeling better about ourselves because we are better. We ourselves are better when we change what's going on up here in the head. So this is where you got to put your attention. You've got to put your attention here. You want to stop playing the victim? You got to get clear with what's up here in the head. Get that clear. Because once you come to a realization of how things really are, how you're constructed, how the universe is constructed, and this whole thing that we call life is constructed and designed by our Heavenly Father. Once you understand that design and how things operate, the only reason you would ever play the victim is by conscious choice, because it's so blatantly obvious. There's no reason to play the victim. There's no reason to be a victim. So, and this takes work. This takes time. I'm not talking about something that, half your problems will go boom, half your problems will go away. But to get to that point, that's not an overnight thing. That's not an instantaneous thing, right? Because you're talking about changing habits. And when you really start evaluating this, you'll find there's so many habits. There's so many assumptions we have that are faulty assumptions. So many perspectives we have that are just looking at things in less effective ways. So many attitudes that we have that are bringing us down. So many messages of self-talk that are negative. I mean, there's so much that needs correction. So get on the bandwagon. Get on this train of self-improvement and start making the changes on the inside so that you can get the changes you want to see in your life on the outside. We're coming up to a break. Let's go take that break. And we come back from the break. I have a special thought or two to wrap up the program with. You're not going to want to miss it, so I will see you there on the other side.